What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap video. And today we're doing something a little bit different. Today I'm just going to be talking about different decks for Series 1 players, Series 2 players, and Series 3 players that only have a few Series 3 cards. And there's not going to be any gameplay today, since if I showed gameplay for every one of these decks, this video would be over an hour long, and I don't want to do that. I want to try and keep this video maybe about 30 minutes or less if possible. So one of the biggest problems of Marvel Snap is that once you start unlocking cards and you start to hit, Pool 3, Series 3, whatever you want to call it, the rate at which you start unlocking new cards is very, very slow. As you can see, I'm unlocking new cards every now and then. We got Dracula, Wolverine variant, Mystique, Crystal. But sometimes the way you unlock cards, since it's random, you might just get cards that don't synergize well with each other, or just cards that are not very good, aka Crystal. So, people have mixed collections, and it doesn't really feel great. Now, they did kind of try and help that a little bit with the addition of the token shop, which I think this is a step in the right direction. However, I think that they can still improve upon this. As you can see, I have M'Baku in my token shop, which honestly, this might be the new worst card in the game. This just seems like a very, very bad card. I really don't see any use for this card at all. It seems like it's even worse than Quicksilver. But anyways, since it's a Series 4 card, it's 3,000 collector's tokens. That is very expensive. It didn't really hit me how expensive collector's tokens are and how hard they are to get until after a few days into this new season. I only have 500 collector's tokens now. I already spent the ones that I got from the new season refresh. So yeah, I'm seeing all these cards coming in my token shop, and I saw like Thanos, I saw Titania. I was like, oh man, I want to get these cards, but I don't really want to put any more money into this game at the moment. Currently, I have put in some money, but at the moment, I don't really want to be spending money to try and, get a chance to unlock collector's tokens through the collection level. Now, you could get collector's tokens from the Cyber Holiday bundle, but it's $100. That is a lot of money. And you're only getting 3,000 collector's tokens, which is only good for one Series 4 or Series 5 card. So I feel like they need to do something more with the collector's tokens. I feel like there needs to be, I don't know, maybe you can buy collector's tokens directly with gold, like how there's an option to buy credits with gold. I don't know. But anyways, that was just kind of a mini side rant. But the main topic of this video is I'm going to be showcasing 2 Series 1 decks, 2 Series 2 decks, 2 early Series 3 decks, and then 2 bonus decks, I guess if you want to call them that. One featuring Miles Morales and one featuring Black Panther, the past 2 season pass cards. So let's go ahead and get into it, because I realize that not a lot of people, play this game as much as I do, and there are people who play this even more than me and still don't have full collections, and it seems like it's gonna take a long time to get a full collection. I think even the people at Second Dinner, the developers of this game, said that it's almost impossible to get a full collection for this game, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But yeah, if you're new to Marvel Snap, or maybe you don't have a lot of cards in your collection, or maybe just a more casual player, you don't really have time to be playing a lot to unlocking new cards, then this video is for you. Stick around, because I'm going to be showing some budget decks that are very solid, and let's go ahead and let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the first deck, we have a Series 1 Zoo list. If you're unfamiliar with the term Zoo, essentially It usually involves this guy, Khazar, which has an ongoing effect that your 1-cost cards have +1 power. So Zoo essentially means we like to swarm the board with a lot of 1 power units. So Khazar is pretty essential for this deck since he's going to buff them up by 1. Blue Marvel as well is going to buff all your other cards by 1. And then Onslaught will actually double those effects at the location that he's played in. So essentially, you can, if you play Onslaught on top of Blue Marvel or Khazar or both, you'll be giving your 1-cost cards +2 power, or give all your other cards +2 power. So a very strong combo. We have Ant-Man, which is just very solid value at 1 energy ongoing if you have 3 other cards here, +3 power. Very easy to fulfill this requirement with this style of deck. So he's essentially almost always going to play for 4 power, plus he gets the buff from Khazar Blue Marvel. Then we have a Elektra. Elektra is really good at destroying enemy 1-cost cards. So if your opponent is playing something like Ant-Man, you can use Elektra to destroy them. Hawkeye is just decent value on reveal if you play a card here next turn, +2 power. So he will essentially be 3 power for 1 energy. The only downside to him is that he is very predictable. If you play him, your opponent knows, okay, my opponent's going to play a card here next turn. So once you get out of Series 1 and start unlocking better 1-drops, Hawkeye can be replaced usually. Although he's not a bad card. I will say he's a pretty good starter card. Squirrel Girl is going to add 1 power squirrels to each other location. So essentially 3 power for 1 energy, plus 3 bodies on the board that get buffed up again by Khazar and Blue Marvel. Nightcrawler is really good to move into troublesome locations such as Sanctum Sanctorum, where cards cannot be played there. Angela, even though she did get nerfed recently, she's still a really good value card when you play a card here, +2 power. So you usually want to play Angela in a lane and then play a bunch of other 1-drops on top of her. And if you play Nightcrawler on top of Angela and then move Nightcrawler to a different lane, you can essentially get more value out of your Angela, which is really nice. And then we have Sentinel. I feel like Sentinel is a card you don't really see in the style of Zoo list, but I feel like he's kind of underrated here. So he's 2 energy, 3 power. On reveal, add another Sentinel to your hand. And he's just kind of good for just keeping consistent plays. It's really important to just kind of have options in your hand, you know? So with a lot of 1-drops, you usually kind of dump your hand, and sometimes you find your hand being kind of awkward. Maybe you only have 1 or 2 cards in your hand, or maybe your hand is empty even. So Sentinel kind of prevents that and kind of helps you just give you some options to play out. So he's a decent card, I think. And then Wolfsbane is a really good card in this style of deck. She is 3 energy, 1 power. On reveal, +2 power for each other card you have here. So for full potential, if you have 3 other cards at a location, Wolfsbane will get +6 power for a total of 7 power for 3 energy, which is really good value. Captain America, another decent value 3-drop for 3 energy ongoing. Your other cards at this location +1 power, so potentially he can be 6 power. And then I already mentioned Khazar, Blue Marvel, and Onslaught are really going to be your heavy hitters and finishers in this deck to really just buff up all your other cards. And this is a pretty strong list. I really enjoy playing this list. I would say this is competitive even into the higher ranks. I've seen even people like get infinite with a list like this. You could even play other cards if you like, such as I think Korg is Series 1, right? I think Korg is a Series 1 card. You could play Korg. You could also play Rocket Raccoon. You could play Blade. Even though he discards a card from your hand, you could potentially play him on turn 5 or turn 6. So discarding a card doesn't really matter. And he's just 3 power, which is good. And yeah, it's a pretty solid Series 1 deck. And let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we have a Series 1 ongoing list. And personally, this is one of my favorite decks to play. I was playing a deck similar to this. The only change was instead of Punisher, I had Mojo, which is a Series 3 ongoing card. I actually played this list with Mojo instead of Punisher up to rank 97 last season. This list is very good, even in the higher ranks. It's essentially about the same as the Destroyer meta decks you would see. Destroyer is a really popular 6 power cost card. He'll destroy your other cards, but there's a way to cancel out his ability with Cosmo and Armor and Professor X. So this list is very strong in my opinion, even into the higher ranks. So let's go ahead and get into this deck here. Every card here is ongoing except for Spectrum. Spectrum is your big finisher. She's 6 energy for 5 power. On reveal, give your ongoing cards plus 2 power. Very strong ability. And like I said, all these cards in this deck except for Spectrum are ongoing, so they're all going to receive the buff from her, and it can be absolutely huge, especially if you get like Camouflage as a location where on reveal abilities happen twice. So a very strong deck. Ant-Man is a really good ongoing card for 1 energy. Armor is good not only to protect your cards, but also to prevent other cards the opponent is playing to be destroyed if they're playing destroy decks like things like Carnage, Bucky Barnes, things like that. Or, well, actually, I believe Bucky Barnes is Series 2, so if you're Series 1, you won't really be seeing Bucky Barnes, actually. But Armor is still a good card either way. Colossus is good for those tricky locations. Sometimes there will be locations like Death's Domain. When you play a card here, destroy it. Or there will be the cards or the locations that like cards have negative power here. So Colossus is good for those tricky locations. He can't be destroyed, moved, or have his power reduced, which is a nice effect. Lizard is very good value for 2 energy. He's 5 power. Ongoing, -3 power if your opponent has 4 cards here. So now they could trigger his ability to make him 2 power. However, you can kind of read like what your opponent is playing to kind of play around that. But even if they do activate his ability, it's not the end of the world because you could still buff Lizard with Spectrum. Lizard is just a really solid card. He's still played even like in the high level meta decks. Mr. Fantastic is a perfect, not a perfect card. Well, what am I saying there? One of my favorite cards is what I meant to say. He's 3 energy, 2 power. Ongoing, adjacent locations have +2 power. So ideally, you'd like to play him in the middle lane and spread out power across all 3 lanes, which is very nice. Then we have the Punisher, 3 energy, 2 power, ongoing, +1 power for each opposing card at this location. So potentially could be up to 6 power. And Captain America is kind of the same. Punisher and Captain America are pretty similar, except Punisher gets value off your opponent's cards at the opposing location, and Captain America gives power to your cards at your location. So both solid ongoing cards. And then Cosmo. Cosmo is one of the strongest, if not the strongest tech card in the game. 3 energy for 3 power. Ongoing, on reveal abilities won't happen at this location. So very good for denying all sorts of on reveal abilities. The only thing you need to be aware of is do not play Cosmo where you play your Spectrum, because if not, then you're screwed basically. So that's really the only thing you need to be worried about. Other than that, Cosmo is a very strong tech card. Then we have Namor. Namor, I really like him. He's 4 energy, 5 power, ongoing, +5 power if this is your only card here. So 10 power for 4 energy is very good value. Once you get into Series 2, people like to replace him for Warpath, 4 energy, 5 power, ongoing if any of your locations are empty, +4 power. Warpath is good too, but Personally, I like Namor better. I really like him better. That's just kind of a personal opinion. Warpath is probably better once you unlock him, but I don't know. I mean, I like Namor, and I like this variant too. So I really like him. And then we have Iron Man, 5 energy, 0 power. Ongoing, your total power is doubled at this location. A very, very strong ability to play with. And again, ongoing, so he gets buffed by Spectrum. And we have another 5 cost option in the Claw. Claw is a bit of an underrated card, I feel like. 5 energy, 4 power. Ongoing, the location to the right has plus 6 power. So Claw is also very good for sneaking in power to those troublesome locations that you can't play any cards in. Maybe like, what's that location called? I think it's Luke's Bar, right? It's you play a card here, it gets sent back to your hand. Sanctum Sanctorum, Death's Domain, things like that. Claw is very good at sneaking power into those locations. And he also pairs well with Namor, because if you play Namor on his own on one location, he will be 10 power. Plus, you play Claw to the left of that location, add an extra 6 power. That is 16 power with just Namor and then Claw feeding power into that lane. And that is a lot of power for that combo. So very, very good. And then, like I said, we have our big finisher, Spectrum, 6 energy, 5 power. On reveal, give your ongoing cards plus 2 power. So a very good finisher. This list is very strong. There's definitely some upgrades you can make to it, or some changes you can make to it once you start unlocking more cards. I mentioned Destroyer as one of them. Mojo is another good Series 3 card. Ebony Maw is an option as well. He's a Series 2 card, 1 energy, 7 power. You can't play this after turn 3, but he is also ongoing, so he gets buffed by Spectrum. You can't play cards here. So Ebony Maw is a good card to slot into this deck as well if you unlock him from Series 2, because even though you can't play cards here, is a really negative ability. Again, you can slide power into his location with Mr. Fantastic, with Claw, and you can buff him with Spectrum. So Ebony Maw is a really good card in this list as well. Mystique is a Series 3 card that copies an ongoing ability of the last card you played. And then there's also Blue Marvel, which is an ongoing card. And there's Warpath I mentioned. Professor X is another good one as well. Lock down this location. The only thing is, Professor X is a little bit risky unless you have Daredevil or Destroyer, which are Series 3 cards. And I have neither of those yet, actually, so I haven't really played that much Professor X, but he is also ongoing, and you can lock down this location, but the cards at that location can still get buffed by Spectrum, which is very powerful. Okay, and I think that's all that can be said about this deck. Now let's move on to the Series 2 decks. Alright, so once you get into Series 2, this is when the Destroy archetype really starts coming into form, because you unlock cards like Bucky Barnes, as well as Killmonger, and I think Sabretooth is a Series 2 card as well, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a deck list that is very strong in Series 2, and even these cards are still played in the top level meta decks. Killmonger, Nova, Carnage, Bucky, Storm, all these cards are still very present in the meta, and Destroy is arguably the strongest archetype in Marvel Snap at the moment. So starting off, we have Nova. When this card is destroyed, give your cards +1 power. A very, very strong ability, which pairs well with our Destroy cards, which are going to be Carnage, Deathlock, and Killmonger. And we have Bucky Barnes, which is really one of the best Destroy cards, maybe, until you start unlocking more Series 3 cards. 2 energy, 1 power. When this is destroyed, create the Winter Soldier in its place. So the Winter Soldier is actually 6 power. So when you destroy him, he comes out as 6 power, which is very, very good. And oh, actually, you see that little glitch? Is that a glitch there? His baseball bat is like going through the number there. All right. Anyways, Bucky Barnes is very good. Carnage is there to destroy Nova, destroy Bucky Barnes, and Carnage can also destroy some cards that you don't want on your side of the board, such as the ninjas that spawn from the location that gives you the -2 power ninjas, or the locations that give you the squirrels, things like that. And he's going to get +2 power for each card destroyed, so pretty essential for every destroy deck. Then we have Wolverine, 2 energy, 3 power. When this is discarded or destroyed, play it at a random location. Wolverine is a decent card for Series 2, but I think once you get to Series 3, this is a card that you're probably going to be looking to replace as soon as you can. Then we have Storm. Once you unlock Storm, you pretty much you unlock this whole new power, because Storm is 3 energy for 2 power. On reveal, flood this location. Next turn is the last turn cards can be played here. So essentially, you can lock down a location that you're winning or you think you're going to win, and she pairs very nicely with Jessica Jones. You play Storm on turn 3, Jessica Jones on turn 4. She is 4 power on reveal. If you don't play a card here next turn, +4 power. So even if you just have Storm and Jessica Jones in one lane, that's 10 power, which is really a lot of power for just 2 cards. Then we have Killmonger. Killmonger is honestly like a meta defining card. Like this card is just absolutely wrecks so many cards, because he's 3 energy, 3 power. On reveal, destroy all 1-cost cards. And the only 1-cost card we run in our deck is Nova, which we want to destroy anyways. So Killmonger is very good in this list. Now, something I want to point out with Killmonger is you don't usually want to play him on turn 3. He's something you kind of want to save as late as possible to like turn 5, turn 6 and play him. Sometimes you might play him on turn 3, but usually you want to wait to play him as late as possible. And sometimes with these other cards, you kind of want to wait to play them as well, because if you play Nova on turn 1 or Bucky on turn 2, your opponent is going to say, okay, they're playing a destroy deck, so I'm going to go ahead and drop armor on you, and your cards can't be destroyed, and that feels very bad. So sometimes you might want to wait, depends on your hand, depends on the location, but a really good combo as well is just to play Bucky and Carnage together on turn 4. So something to just be aware of. Then we have Sabretooth. Sabretooth is 3 energy for 4 power. When this is destroyed, return it to your hand. It costs 0. So another card that kind of just fits in with the destroy archetype. A card that you can maybe slot in that kind of pairs well with Sabretooth is Forge. Forge is 2 energy. On reveal, give the next card you play +2 power. So you could slot in Forge if you would like, play him on turn 2, play Sabretooth on turn 3, then destroy Sabretooth, get him back in your hand, and he's going to keep the buff from Forge. So essentially you just have a buffed Sabretooth in your hand that costs 0 energy. So that is a really strong combo as well. And then we have Deathlock. Deathlock is going to destroy your other cards at this location. So he is another option that we can have to destroy Wolverine or Bucky or Nova or Sabretooth. Or you might just play him on a location by himself for 5 power, which isn't the worst thing. And now we get access to Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is one of my favorite cards in Series 2. He's going to destroy all enemy cards at this location that have 9 or more power. Shang-Chi is another card that you don't always want to play on turn 4. I mean, you can sometimes, but you kind of want to keep him till turn 5 or turn 6 for a little bit more surprise value, so you can get more cubes from your opponent. A really good card at just keeping greedy decks in check, essentially. And then I have mentioned Jessica Jones, which pairs well with Storm. And we have Vision. Vision is 5 energy for 7 power. You can move this each turn. So he is also very good with Storm, because once you play Storm and flood a location, neither you or your opponent can't play cards there. However, you can play Vision and move him into that lane for an additional 7 power, which is very, very strong. And then we have America Chavez. America Chavez is very good for just keeping our deck consistent. You always draw her on turn 6 and not before. So we essentially know what we're going to be drawing on turn 6, which is very valuable information. And it also gives us higher chances of drawing our combo pieces like Bucky Barnes, like Carnage, like Nova Killmonger. So a very good card to throw in any deck, really. I really love America Chavez. She can slot into any deck, to be honest with you. And that's it for this deck. Actually, let me talk about maybe some upgrades real quick once you start unlocking more cards. Actually, I would not recommend Angel. Angel is 1 energy for 2 power. When one of your cards is destroyed, this flies out of your deck to replace it. If you're running Angel, I would recommend just taking him out, to be honest, because half the time he's just going to start in your opening hand, which sucks, essentially just becoming like a Quicksilver, which is not a very good card. And he also gets killed by Killmonger, so Angel is not very good. Now, there are more Series 3 cards that I don't have, actually, that would fit very well. Deathpool, Venom, and Death. Absolutely busted card right here for sure. And then there's also the consideration to play Colossus. Since he can't be destroyed, you could play like something like Colossus plus like Sabretooth on one lane, for example, and then play Carnage. Carnage will eat the Sabretooth, give it back to you in your hand, but Colossus will still live. So Colossus is a decent option as well, but I think this deck is pretty solid as is. And let's go ahead and get into the next Series 2 deck. All right, up for the next deck, we have a Series 2 Devil Dinosaur deck. Devil Dinosaur is probably one of the most played cards in the game, and it's definitely very strong in Series 1 and Series 2. Even in Series 3 as well. But I think in Series 1 and Series 2, he's probably one of the more consistent decks. So the whole deck is based around this card, essentially 5 energy, 3 power, ongoing, plus 2 power for each card in your hand. So he can really be huge, huge power. If you have a full hand, if you didn't know, the maximum number of cards you can have in your hand is 7. So if we multiply 7 by 2, that is plus 14 power. So he could potentially be 17 power, and that is absolutely huge. And we could potentially play 2 Devil Dinosaurs thanks to Moon Girl. Moon Girl is 4 energy for 4 power. On reveal, duplicate your hand. So she could essentially give you 2 Devil Dinosaurs while also filling up your hand to get the maximum value out of his ongoing ability. And once we get into Series 2, we start unlocking some more cards that can really help out this archetype. And one of those is Agent 13. She is 1 energy for 2 power. On reveal, add a random card to your hand. Now, the card she adds doesn't really matter, to be honest. You don't even really have to play whatever card she adds to your hand. But just adding a card to your hand not only feeds your Devil Dinosaur, but it also works well with the Collector, another card that you will unlock in Series 2. He's 2 energy for 1 power. When a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck, plus 1 power. So Collector essentially gets buffed from Agent 13, which will add a random card to your hand. Collector gets buffed from Cable, which steals a card from your opponent. Collector also gets buffed from Sentinel and from Moon Girl. So Collector and Agent 13 slot in very nicely in a Devil Dinosaur deck. And then you'll also be unlocking Iceman, which is one of the best 1-drops in the game. On reveal, give a random card in your opponent's hand plus 1 cost for a maximum of 6. So really good disruption tool at just messing up your opponent's energy curve. A really good card to just slot into any deck, really. Then we have Korg as well for a little bit more disruption to shuffle a rock into your opponent's deck. And Collector can really get into some high numbers if you get a good hand and some good draws. And then we have Cable. Now, something I want to mention about Cable that I actually don't see a lot of people mention with him is his on reveal ability. Put the bottom card of your opponent's deck into your hand. Now, the thing with this ability is it's not taking a copy of your opponent's card, right? You're actually taking that card out of your opponent's deck into your hand. So essentially, your opponent does not have that card in their deck anymore, which is a ton of value. Now, you could be saying, well, it's the bottom card of their deck. They probably weren't going to play it anyways. And that could be true. However, there are some locations or some cards that make you draw cards or kind of shuffle cards throughout your deck. So, sometimes they could have played that card, and sometimes you could be stealing a big win condition from their deck, which is very, very good. So, I really like Cable in this list. Then we have Armor. Armor is just going to protect our 1-drops from Killmonger. Once you get to Series 2, you'll probably see a lot of Killmonger. Also protects Devil Dinosaur from Shang-Chi. Sentinel is really good value. Going to add another Sentinel to your hand, so really good for buffing our Devil Dinosaur as well as Collector. Osmo is a good tech tool to protect your Devil Dinosaur from Shang-Chi or Enchantress. Moon Girl, I mentioned, will duplicate your hand, so potentially giving you 2 Devil Dinosaurs to play as well as filling up your hand. And something to note with Moon Girl as well is so you can only have up to 7 cards in your hand. She will duplicate your hand starting from the left. So for example, let's say you have 4 cards in your hand. Well, she's going to duplicate the 3 leftmost cards in your hand, so you'll have a total of 7 cards. So if your Devil Dinosaur is the leftmost card in your hand, he will get duplicated. But if he's on the right side of your hand, then he will not if you don't have enough space in your hand. So something to keep note of. Then we have White Queen, 4 energy, 6 power. On reveal, draw a copy of the highest cost card in your opponent's hand. White Queen is very good for a couple different reasons. 6 power for 4 energy is not bad, but really a couple different things here is when you draw a copy of the highest cost card in your opponent's hand, it's different from Cable's ability. Cable is actually pulling that card out of your opponent's deck into your hand. White Queen is going to give you a copy, so your opponent will still have that card in their hand, but you'll also be getting a copy of it in your hand. So again, feeding our Devil Dinosaur, but also giving us information. It gives us information into what our opponent might play on turn 5 or turn 6. So a really good card at kind of just reading your opponent's decks and what they might play. And then, of course, I already mentioned Devil Dinosaur. Really just want to keep our hand full to buff him up. And then we have Chavez for consistency. You could play her on turn 6 if maybe you got unlucky and didn't draw Devil Dinosaur or didn't draw Moon Girl to duplicate him. So she is a decent play on turn 6, but ideally you want to have Devil Dinosaur in your hand by turn 4 to duplicate him with Moon Girl on turn 4, and then play 1 Dino on turn 5 and then another on turn 6. So pretty straightforward deck, pretty easy to play, and very reliable in Series 2. So next, we're going to go on to the early Series 3 decks. I got 2 decks that are early Series 3, and they only have, I believe, 1 Series 3 cards in them each. Now, there's a lot of Series 3 cards, so there's definitely like a lot more decks that you can build with Series 3 cards, but these are 2 that I think that are pretty strong if you do unlock the cards, and maybe I'll go over some substitutes for them if you don't have them. All right, so now we are going into the Series 3 decks, and we have another Destroy deck, and this one is pretty similar for the most part to the Series 2 deck list. However, we have the addition of the Hood, which is a very, very good Series 3 card. He's 1 energy for -2 power. Now, on paper, that might not sound very good, but he has the ability on reveal, add a demon to your hand, and the demon is 1 energy for 6 power. So really a total of 4 power from the hood, and you can really kind of just nullify the -2 by destroying him with Carnage or Deathlock. So the hood is a very strong card in destroy archetypes. Now, what if you don't have the hood? Well, other Series 3 cards that fit very well with this archetype are Viper. Well, Viper actually plays well with the hood. So if you have the hood and Viper, play them together. They're very nice. But if you don't have either of those, you could also play Mysterio. Mysterio's 2 energy for 4 power, and he's going to play 2 other 0-cost illusions onto the board, and basically it's just a 0-point body that you can destroy with Carnage for free power. So Mysterio is very good in that as well. You could also, like I said before, you can maybe put in Forge to buff the Sabretooth. And then there's also, of course, the other Series 3 cards I mentioned that I don't have, unfortunately. But yeah, Venom, Death, Deadpool are all pretty fun to get, pretty fun to play with. And then I have Hobgoblin in here as a nice disruption tool. Totally not necessary. You can swap him out with something else if you would like. But I like having Hobgoblin in there for a little bit of disruption. You can also put in Scorpion, which is just a good value card as well. You could go back to the Storm and Jessica Jones combo for more location controls. So there is a ton of different ways to play this deck and play this archetype. However, I think the hood is a very welcome upgrade to the destroy archetype. So didn't spend too much time talking about this one since I mainly covered the Series 2 version, which is pretty much the same for the most part. So let's go ahead and get into the next deck. Now, looking at the next deck, we have an early Series 3 on reveal deck, and you guessed it, it's got your boy Wongers, aka Wong. Ongoing, your on reveal abilities at this location happen twice. So a very strong card as long as he does not get countered. The thing is, Wong is very strong when he goes unanswered, but he's also very easy to be countered by things like Cosmo or by things like Enchantress. So a very strong card if you do pull him, but just be aware he can be countered very easily. However, even if you do get countered, this is still a pretty solid deck all around. We have the Iceman and the Korg for disruption. We have the Nightcrawler to go well with Angela to buff her up, move him to a different lane. We have Okoye, which is just a good value card. She's going to give every card in your deck +1 power. Then we have Ironheart. Ironheart goes well with Wong and Odin. On reveal, give 3 other friendly cards +2 power. And Wolfsbane, again, another good on reveal card for some good value. Then we have the Storm and Jessica Jones combo as well. And then we have White Tiger. White Tiger goes very well with Wong and Odin. You play Wong on turn 4. Hopefully he does not get answered. If he does not, then you play White Tiger. White Tiger is going to add a 7 power Tiger to another location. And if you play White Tiger on top of Wong, it's essentially 2 White Tigers. And if you're even lucky enough, you play Odin on turn 6, and it'll activate White Tiger's ability, I think 4 more times, if my math is correct, 4 more times, since it's going to activate White Tiger twice, and then Wong, his ability takes effect, and it'll activate again for another 2 times. So absolutely insane play if Wong does not get countered. Again, you could still win with this deck even if Wong does get countered, but it's a little bit more difficult to do. Now, other cards you can add into this deck list, it would maybe the Guardians of the Galaxy is not the worst thing in the world, like Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord, since you could potentially trigger their ability again with Odin. There's also what else could you throw in here? You could also maybe throw in Shang-Chi as another tech card. Black Panther is very good as well. However, I'm going to talk about a separate Black Panther deck in a little bit here. Spider-Woman is also decent value as well. Maybe you want to play this type of deck and you don't have Wong. Spider-Woman is a decent card. On reveal, afflict all enemy cards here with -1 power. And you could potentially re-trigger her with Odin. So Spider-Woman is good as well. And Arrow is just one of the best cards in the game, but she's Series 3, so if you don't have her, don't worry about it. Dr. Doom also goes very well with Wong, because Dr. Doom is going to add a 5-power Doombot to each other location, and if you play him on top of Wong, he's going to add 4 Doombots, essentially, which is very, very strong. So that is the early Series 3 on reveal list, and we got 2 more decks, a Black Panther deck and a Miles Morales deck. So let's look over those real quick. All right, so here we got a Series 2 movement deck. The only card that's not Series 2 is Miles Morales, which was in the Season Pass a couple seasons ago. I believe you can now get him from either the collector's caches or the token shop. I'm not 100% certain on that, so correct me if I am wrong. But he is the only card here that is not Series 2 or lower. A pretty basic movement list with the addition of Miles and then Vulture and Cloak from Series 2, and then Vision as well. So Iron Fist is a really good card to move your multiple man, to move your Vulture. Really, this deck list is all about buffing multiple man and Vulture as much as possible. And Kraven can get some really insane numbers when a card moves here. This gets +2 power, so it could be a card on your side of the board or a card on your opponent's side of the board. Either way, Kraven will get +2 power. And multiple man, you usually just want to try and buff him up as much as possible with Hulk Buster to merge him, and multiple man will become 7 power, and you can essentially just have 7 power multiple mans all over the board. Cloak is a good value 2-drop. On reveal next turn, both players can move cards to this location, so you can move your multiple man, move your Vulture. Doctor Strange is another movement tool to move your highest power cards, and Vulture is a really good movement card. 3 energy for 3 power when this card moves, plus 5 power. So even if you just move him once, he's going to go to 8. And if you can move him twice or more, he's going to go to double digits. So a very, very good upgrade to the movement archetype. And then Miles doesn't care if a card moved from you or your opponent. So either way, if a card moves, it was you or your opponent that moved it, or it's just like a location moved it, he's going to cost 1 energy. So 1 energy for 5 power is very good value. And then we have Vision. Vision is 5 energy, 7 power. You can move him each turn. Now, Vision is the card I'm kind of least confident about in this list. The thing is, Vision is a movement card, but you don't really play him in movement decks. It's kind of weird. It's kind of hard to explain. But I feel like Vision is better outside of movement decks. Thing is, you don't really get better movement cards until like Series 3, and even then, movement is one of the weaker archetypes in Marvel Snap, unfortunately, even though it's a very fun archetype. So once you start getting Series 3 cards, I would probably take out Vision and maybe add in like Human Torch or Dagger or Polaris, Arrow, Magneto. So once you get into Series 3, I'd probably take out Vision and probably take out Multiple Man as well, maybe. Just kind of depends on which Series 3 cards you unlock. And then we have Heimdall as our big finisher. He is going to move all your other cards on one location to the left. Now, sometimes that might not always be a good thing. In most cases, it usually is, because you are going to spawn a copy of Multiple Man. You're going to buff Kraven. You're going to buff Vulture. But sometimes that might not be the best play. So we have Chavez as an alternate finisher. on turn 6, and as well she gives us more consistency in our deck so we can draw our combo pieces earlier. So that is the Series 2 Miles Morales deck. And let's go ahead and get into the last one, which is a Black Panther Series 2 deck. Alright, so Black Panther Series 2 deck. Black Panther is the only series, or actually, I don't know what series they're classifying the Season Pass cards. I think they're calling them Series 5, right? Anyways, Black Panther was the card from last season's Season Pass. Everything else here is Series 1 or Series 2. Now, Black Panther really doesn't reach his full potential until you get more Series 3 cards, but he's still pretty good with Series 2. So Black Panther is 5 energy for 4 power. On reveal, double this card's power. So he will go to 8 power once you play him from hand. However, we have a couple different ways to buff him up. One of those being Forge, give the next card you play plus 2 power. Okoye is going to give every card in your deck plus 1 power. And we have Nakia, give the 2 leftmost cards in your hand plus 2 power. So we have different ways to buff up Black Panther to essentially get him to double digits, and he can be a pretty big number if you can hit him with all the buffs. So Black Panther is a really fun card to play with. And we have Iceman for the disruption. We have Rocket Raccoon, which I kind of like Rocket with Odin just to have another opportunity to reactivate his ability. However, if you don't like Rocket Raccoon, you could substitute him with either really any one drop, to be honest. You could put in like Nightcrawler, you could put in Ant-Man, you could put in Korg. So if you don't like Rocket Raccoon, you can swap him out if you'd want. Then we have Forge, who can buff our Black Panther, or Forge also goes well with Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister is 2 energy for 2 power. On reveal, add a Sinister clone to this location with the same power. So essentially, if you buff Mr. Sinister with Forge or Okoye or Nakia, whatever buff he receives, his clone is also going to receive that buff. So a very good card to receive the hand buffs. Then we have Ironheart, which is just a good on-reveal card to pair with Odin. Wolfsbane, another good on-reveal value card. Enchantress, just a good tech card. White Tiger, another good Odin target for you. Now, once you start unlocking more Series 3 cards, there are a few different ways you could upgrade this deck. Wong would be one of them. Also, instead of Mr. Sinister, you could put in Brood, which is pretty similar to Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister is 2 energy, 2 power, puts another body on the board, but Brood is 3 energy for 2 power and puts 3 bodies on the board, and is very good with all the hand buff cards. And Brood is also really good with the newly released Silver Surfer card as well. Other cards you can slot in, I mentioned Wong. You could potentially put Taskmaster in to copy Black Panther's power if you can get Black Panther to like a really crazy number. You could put in Doctor Doom to just spread your power across all 3 of the lanes. And a combo that is kind of popular at the moment, not as popular as it used to be, I would say, as last season, but Black Panther and Arnim Zola. So you play Black Panther on one lane, he's going to double his power to 8. Then you play Arnim Zola on top of him, he's going to destroy a random friendly card here, and if Black Panther is the only card at this location, well, he's going to destroy Black Panther. Add copies of it to the other locations. So Black Panther, so essentially Arnim Zola will spawn 2 Black Panthers, and they're going to trigger their on-reveal ability again. So you play Black Panther on turn 5, he's going to go to 8. You play Arnim Zola on turn 6, he's going to spawn 2 more Black Panthers that are 8 power each. They're going to trigger their on-reveal effect again, and they're going to turn into 16 power. So a very, very strong 1-2 combo with Black Panther and Arnim Zola. And that is about it for the decks here. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. I felt like I talked way more than I meant to, but sometimes I can just ramble on and kind of go on these little rants. But anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know if you appreciated or liked this different style of video. I would appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. You know how it goes, because I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. We're getting close to 300, I think, which is really good for me. So I appreciate you guys watching. And if you stayed to the end, thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. Later.